Hello, Red Bank neighbors. I still can't access filters on Instagram, so I can't flip things so that you guys can read what I have. I'm so sorry. Bear with me. Mental health is health. So I've got a few things I can talk about today and go over. We've got our agenda for the work session tomorrow. Our second and final budget vote, which was going to happen last meeting, but we ended up having some discussion and tabled it for tomorrow. So if you missed it, hey, you have the chance to actually come out and check out the meeting, give comments, ask questions, all that stuff. So that meeting is, by the way, going to be at the community center. We moved it just in case people wanted to show up to give comments. Because it is a budget meeting and we are talking about a percentage tax increase. We are not voting on the tax rate yet. We did get the certified tax rate from the state finally. It happened just after our last meeting, which again, you can't read this. I'm so sorry, but this is the formal calculation signed by Marty Haynes, signed by Martin Granum, our city manager. We'll go over that in just a little bit, but let's go through the agenda first, and then you guys can ask questions as we go. So first, we're just going to be recognizing some employees who have recently been promoted internally. We have a monthly financial update from our CFO, Chris Pickle, and she's going to be pretty present during our meeting tomorrow anyway, since we're voting on our budget, our second and final vote on the budget. So she's going to be there to answer questions and all of that, but she's going to be giving our financial update for this fiscal year ahead of that. We're going to be making an appointment to our Cemetery Citizen Advisory Board, and we're also going to be making an appointment to our Nonprofit Citizen Advisory Board. Really grateful, as always, for our Red Bank neighbors who volunteer to serve on these advisory boards. Item number 5, kind of going through this pretty quickly, but we're going to have our budget discussion. So this is going to cover the conversation that came out of our last meeting. So in case you missed it, we were going to vote and have our second vote on the budget on June the 3rd. June the 3rd. We had already voted on it at the end of May, and it passed 5-0 with a proposed 5% tax increase. And then when we came to our June 3rd meeting, we had discussion, and one of our commissioners decided that they weren't going to vote yes any longer on the budget. Despite there being no changes at all to the budget that she had voted for, she changed her mind. So we had some more discussion that came about from the vice mayor, and she brought up adding back in a stormwater supervisor position. It was a full-time position that in an earlier version of the budget we had compromised on and taken it out to compromise, and postponing that, even though it was really, really needed position. We are just finishing our stormwater asset management plan that we have never had before. We've managed our stormwater utility since 2002. We've never mapped it. We didn't know all of the ins and outs of the culverts and the ditches and the basins and all of that. And so we finally have that, and there's a big, thick old report on it. And their top recommendation is a stormwater supervisor, immediately, to help start implementing a plan to address infrastructure needs that are high priority, short term, and then look at planning out future maintenance efforts. But in an effort to compromise, we took it out of the budget that we actually voted on the first time. Well, when Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey changed her mind about voting on the budget, voting yes for the budget, the vice mayor Holly Berry said she would like to add back in the stormwater supervisor position because she had agreed to take it out in the spirit of compromise, and since there didn't appear to be a higher level of compromise, she wanted to add it back in because it was something we really need. As we all know, we're seeing increasing flooding events that are happening in areas where it really shouldn't be happening. And we have a stream that runs through the majority of our city. It has flooded before. We have businesses that are built over Stringer's Branch. That is illegal to do today, but they were built at a time when they could be. They're grandfathered in, but if there was a flood event that caused these buildings to require more than 50% renovation legally, they cannot be rebuilt there. So when we're talking about stormwater management in Red Bank, having a stream that runs through the majority of our city and under our I think it was like 70% of our businesses along Dayton Boulevard, that could have severe economic impact on us if there was ever a severe flooding event, okay? So, all of that to say, it makes sense, it's logical, it's practical, it's good stewardship to have somebody hired into that position. And so the conversation became about that. Adding that position back in, what would that look like? Adding that to the use of fund balance. And so because of that, we tabled the budget for tomorrow, June 17th at 6 p.m. at the community center. And we are going to have discussion about that. But what our staff have done behind the scenes and what we'll be discussing tomorrow are various scenarios of the budget. So we already voted on the budget the first time. This second vote will be an amendment of the first budget, but almost everything is staying the same. The only thing that would change is adding the stormwater supervisor position back into the budget and looking at potential different tax increases, tax revenue increases. So what would it look like at the 5% amount that we budgeted for already, or that we voted on already? What would it look like? So that's our base scenario. So we have a list of scenarios. We have a base scenario, which is what we voted on already. It did not include the stormwater supervisor position, but it did include a 5% tax increase, approximate, and a projected use of fund balance of $407,869. Okay, so the new scenario 1 that would build off of that base scenario is to add the stormwater supervisor back in, but keep the 5% increase the same. That would only increase our projected use of fund balance to $415,675, so just under $8,000 additional. And that is because what they did was they shifted a position into our sanitation and stormwater departments, which have dedicated funding. And it doesn't come from the general fund. And it made sense to do that because this person works in both of those departments. And so those funds will pay for that person's salary. So it only increased the projected use of fund balance, like I said, a little under $8,000. So that's scenario 1. 5% stormwater supervisor increases use of fund balance a little under $8,000. Okay, scenario 2 is the stormwater supervisor, and then an additional approximate 1% increase in tax rate. It would be, instead of 5%, it would be 5.9322% increase, and it would reduce, because you're bringing in more revenues, it would reduce our use of fund balance to $363,175. So that is 37. That is about a $45,000 reduction in use of fund balance. And scenario 3 has an increase of about 9.277%, and that would reduce our use of fund balance down to $205,675. So it would cut the use of fund balance in half from the first vote that we had at the end of May. So those are the different scenarios that we're looking at. I hope that makes sense, but the other thing I'm going to go back to now, since I talked to you about this certified tax rate calculation that we got from the state comptroller, then it goes back down to Marty Haynes, the property assessor, and then comes to us. So our tax rate before this reappraisal cycle was $1.67 per $100 of assessed value. Our home values increased dramatically in Red Bank. Almost the median increase was 59.4%. So median is smack dab in the middle. So anybody, above that number, they saw a pretty dramatic increase in their assessed value. And that was true for all of Hamilton County. Hamilton County saw an average increase of 60% across the county. So Red Bank, East Ridge, and the poorest parts of Chattanooga saw the highest increases in their home values, their property values rather, because this does include commercial properties. So because our home values increase so much, what that certified tax rate does is it reduces your tax rate to keep you almost revenue neutral at the same amount of revenues that you got the year before the reappraisal happened. So because of that, our rate dropped from $1.67 to 0.8968. A dramatic drop. So when I am talking numbers, 5% increase, 5.9, what did I say? 322% increase, 9.277% increase. This is an increase on the tax rate that is 0.8968. So the different scenarios, the one that the only two that would, the three that would change our tax rate is first scenario with a 5% increase that would change our tax rate from 0.8968 to 0.94. Scenario 2 with the 5.9322% increase would change our tax rate to 95 cents. And the 9.277% increase would change our tax rate to 98 cents. So all of the scenarios we're discussing tomorrow that involve the addition of the stormwater supervisor and a percentage increase are all going to be under $1. Going to keep that rate under $1. So my husband has a accounting degree. I've talked about this before. He is very good with spreadsheets. He did this in 2023 when we had our big tax increase, and created a spreadsheet where you could input your assessed value, your old one and your new one, and you put the old rate, tax rate, and the new tax rate, and it would calculate what the difference was going to be. Well, we have been talking to several of our friends and neighbors and gotten different scenarios for neighbors whose assessed values increased anywhere from 30% to up to 80%. The vast majority of them are seeing their Red Bank tax bill decrease because that rate dropped so significantly. But the ones who saw the higher increases in assessed value, like one of my friends who saw an 80% increase in her assessed value. Her red bank tax bill, I think, was only going up a little, or no, I think her red bank tax bill was still going down, but her Hamilton County tax bill was going up dramatically, like a few hundred, $250, $300. That's actually what we're going to be seeing more of. Your Hamilton County tax bill, for a lot of you whose home values increased in that higher end of that range, you are going to see an increase in your Hamilton County tax bill, even though they are not raising their tax rate. And that's because your assessed value went up above that median assessed value. That's when you're really going to see that. But a lot of people are going to see decreases in their red bank tax bill. So, yeah, that's part of the conversation we're going to be having tomorrow. And then, we're not limited to those. That's just kind of a starting point that staff worked on. But, we can talk about other numbers and have discussion on that. We do have to vote on our budget tomorrow because we have to vote on it by June 30th. So, yeah, we're going to have a really healthy discussion tomorrow. I hope you guys will show up at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock for our work session, as always, 6 o'clock for our commission meeting, and we'll be there as long as we need to be. So that's the budget discussion, item number 5. We still have a couple more items on our work session agenda, but that's the bulk of probably what we'll be spending our time talking about tomorrow. Item number 6, I am super pumped about. We are going to be voting on adopting the Red Bank Comprehensive Plan 2045. It is our first ever, as you've heard me say many times, our first ever comprehensive plan. We had a land use plan from 2014. We had kind of like a visioning report from 2003, but not a whole lot was ever really done with those, especially the one from 2003. Some zoning was updated in 2014, but it was updated mostly to be very restrictive to private property owners, and to try to keep people out of our community. I don't know. Anyway, different priorities. But we're getting away from that, thank goodness. And this is our comprehensive plan. As you can see, I have earmarked a lot. There were some questions and things I had and some really interesting points. But what I am really excited about is the fact that we're going to finally have something to help guide us as we set goals over the next 20 years for our city. Where do we want to be with housing, with land use, with our economy, with parks and rec and open spaces, with mobility, safety for pedestrians and cyclists and all people who move and roll through our city. So I'm really, really excited about this. This is uploaded on our website, so you can check it out. It is like 180 pages, so there's lots of information. But we are voting on this, and it's really a guide. It's not saying this is a goal we're setting and we're doing this goal tomorrow. This is going to guide how we set goals and what goals we prioritize over the next 20 years. So yeah, really excited about this. Take a look. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, and then we're going to vote on it. And then let's see, item number 7 is approve application for and, if awarded, acceptance of a cybersecurity grant in the amount of $59,922.60. So this is a grant that's being offered from the Department of Homeland Security. It's a state and local cybersecurity grant. The dollar amount that we applied for will cover things like firewalls, security licenses, a web server, IT security products like vulnerability scanning, multi-factor authentication, etc. So this is really great because we actually have budgeted for some of these things in the FY26 budget for next year. So these grants will help offset some of those costs, or this grant, I'm sorry, will help offset some of those costs. So very exciting that this was available to us. So we'll be talking about that. And then the last item is authorize application for and acceptance of a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation. So I'm very, very excited about this one. If we are applying, you can apply for up to $5 million. We're applying for $2 million. It is an 80-20 match, and it would help us complete transportation demonstration projects, more kind of like pilot projects, just like let's try this out and see how this works, how this improves safety. That support current city goals, including things like our recent transportation safety studies that we talked about at our last meeting, at Ashland Terrace, at the Morrison Springs Road intersection. It's going to help us with projects toward a Vision Zero action plan. That means we can envision a community that exists with zero crashes and fatalities that are vehicle related. Safe streets goals of curtailing speeding, enhancing pedestrian walkability, protected cycling routes, and more. So that's what that grant application is for, and would be absolutely incredible for us to be able to receive those funds and get started on some things that we know we need to do, but you know, we always need a little help. We are a smaller city, and so we can only have so many tax revenues that's you know, not going to unduly burden our community. So really excited about applying for that one. And that's it. That's what we're going to be voting on tomorrow. Talking about and voting on tomorrow. So yeah, the big thing is the budget. Just to clarify, in case it wasn't clear, we are not voting on a tax rate tomorrow. We didn't get our certified tax rate from the state in time to include it with our budget because we have to publicly notice it for 30 days. Because we're required to have a public hearing and 2 meetings and votes on the tax rate. So that will happen in July 15th at our meeting in July, and then it will happen, our second vote will be the first meeting in August, which I don't have that date right in front of me. I think it's August the 5th. So that's when we'll actually be voting on the tax rate, but we are going to be talking about taxes tomorrow in our discussion of the budget and a proposed percentage increase in revenues that we need to support the budget and support the needs and wants of our community. So that's it. Thanks for listening. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock at the community center. And okay, have a good night. Stay cool.